Peace be with you. What is the relationship between religion and liberty? Modern social scientists would have you think that they are antithetical, but quite the opposite is true. Without true religion, and when I say religion, I don't mean hypocrisy that most people practice today. I mean actual embodiment of the precepts and commandments that God wants from us. No lying, no cheating, no stealing, humility, helping the poor, all those things that you can find in the Bible and the Quran. Those things are necessary for liberty, and I will explain. But before I explain, let me say that I am not the first person to observe this. The founders of this country, United States of America, have also observed this, and in their writing you can clearly see that. For example, John Adams wrote, "Because we have no government armed with power capable of contending with human passions unbridled by morality and religion, avarice, ambition, revenge, or gallantry would break the strongest cords of our Constitution as a whale goes through a net. Our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people." And in his farewell address in 1796, George Washington said, "Of all the dispositions and habits which lead to political prosperity, religion and morality are indispensable supports. In vain would that a man claim the tribute of patriotism who should labor to subvert these great pillars of human happiness, these firmest props of the duties of men and citizens." And then he said, "And let us with caution indulge the supposition that morality can be maintained without religion. Whatever may be conceded to the influence of refined education on minds of peculiar structure, reason and experience both forbid us to expect that national morality can prevail in exclusion of religious principle." These are the same people that ensured that we have separation of church and state. But they also observed that without people being driven by their faith in God into doing what God wants and becoming enlightened people, becoming merciful people, becoming kind people, you cannot have morality. And without morality, you cannot have liberty. Why can't you have liberty without morality? Suppose that your neighbor robs you constantly. Suppose that you live on Skid Row or Kensington Avenue. At some point, you're going to want to give power to somebody that is stronger and more powerful than the people you are afraid of. So you have the government, and you give them more and more and more power. And there is nothing as antithetical to liberty as a powerful government. But of course, religion itself cannot be forced either. That is just not how it works. And God tells us that in the Quran. In the second chapter of the Quran, verse 256, God says, "There is no compulsion in religion. Truly, the right way has become clearly distinct from error. Therefore, whoever disbelieves in the idols and believes in God, he indeed has laid hold on the firmest handle, which will not break off, and God is hearing and knowing." In the 10th chapter of the Quran, verse 99, God tells us, "And if your Lord had pleased, surely all of those who are in the earth would have believed." All of them. Will you then force people until they become believers? You can't force people into this. In the 18th chapter of the Quran, verse 29, God says, "And say, the truth is from your Lord, so let him who please believe, and let him who please disbelieve." And in the 31st chapter of the Quran, verse 23, God says, "And whoever disbelieves, let not his disbelief grieve you. To us is there in return, that we will inform them of what they did. Surely God is knower of what is in the hearts." And in the 50th chapter of the Quran, verse 45, God says, "We know best what they say, and you are not the one to force them. Therefore remind by the means of the Quran those who fear my threat." There is no compulsion in religion, but religion is necessary for liberty. Without religion, you cannot have morality, and without morality, you will never have liberty. Never. But along those same lines, unless you decide yourself to believe God and do what God commanded, then you are not free if somebody tries to compel you. And that is why God says there is no compulsion in this. If all people decide to be godly people, then they will be free. They do not need a government. They do not need an overlord, nor will they create one themselves out of fear of each other. And that is why liberty and religion are brother and sister. You cannot have one without the other. They protect each other. However, if people of their free will decide to forsake God and do not do what God commanded us to do out of their own free will, then they will destroy their own liberty, and they will create their own overlord, their own quote-unquote God, who will dictate to them what they can and cannot do. And that God will not be as benevolent as true God. This is what the Quran teaches about freedom of religion, and this is what some of the most famous historical figures in the United States of America tried to teach us about the connection of religion and liberty. Because without one, we will lose the other. Peace be with you.